July 20th, 2025. Our scripture today is from the Gospel of Mark. We've been moving through the Gospel of Mark at kind of a rapid pace this summer. We're in chapter 5. We're doing verses 1 through 20. I invite you to read it in the notes there on the video page. Maria was 15, only 15, when she was arrested for assault, gang affiliation, and drug possession, and it got bad. She barely spoke in her group session. Incarceration is not for the meek. She had very dark eyes of defiance, and people learned not to talk to her. The juvenile counselor that was holding her file said it was very heavy. It was thick with trauma, abuse, and abandonment, and loss. He said what haunted him was not her crimes or even what she was accused of doing or how she treated other people. What haunted him was how she would sit in the corner of the room during therapy and quietly scratch her arms to make them bleed with a paperclip. I feel nothing, she said. I just want to feel something, even if it's pain. That is what I'm used to. He described her as someone who had already been buried long before her death. Isn't that where Mark 5 starts? Jesus has just calmed this storm on the Sea of Galilee. They are traveling from place to place. But if the disciples thought that the danger was behind them, they were very wrong. They traveled into the land of the Gerasenes, this Gentile, unclean, spiritually dark place. This area is part of the Decapolis. This is a loose federation of affiliated Hellenistic cities. The Romans hadn't fully taken over power there. There was a little bit of lawlessness. The area was heavily influenced by Greco-Roman culture. Certainly this is not a place for a proper Jew. To Jewish readers in Mark's audience, this would have been foreign, threatening. This is a place that they didn't go. This is a place of pigs and tombs and demons. It is dark and unclean at the least. But Jesus goes there intentionally into this place that feels God-forsaken. And there is in that place among these tombs a man. This man is described as terrifying. It's kind of heartbreaking detail, right? He lives among the dead. He breaks chains that are meant to restrain him. He harms himself with stones. He screams night and day. To the trained ear, this is more than just mental illness. Of course, it probably includes that. This is a bigger problem. Mark says that he has an unclean spirit. And when Jesus asks his name, he says, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Is this a narrative device to talk about the Roman occupation? Maybe. But mostly this man is very obviously in some trouble. The word legion is a loaded term. A Roman legion is made up of about 6,000 soldiers. To people living under Roman occupation, that is enough to calm most resistance. 6,000 is an overwhelming force for a neighborhood. The word legion would imply fear and violence, and domination, the loss of freedom. Imagine living in a place where soldiers could just snatch you up off the street and detain you for long periods of time. No explanations needed. This man is not just spiritually afflicted, he's symbolically occupied, colonized by something dark and evil, something bigger than him. And this possessed man is the embodiment of personal and political oppression. Something from the outside has gained access to the inside. And that's kind of how the whole Gospel of Mark works. Physical healings aren't just about the individual ever. They are signs of the kingdom, breaking into a world that is held captive. Each one is a story of liberation, not only of the one, but of the many. So in this story, Jesus does what no one else has done. He goes toward the man. He doesn't run away scared. He walks confidently toward the man. The disciples stay back, but Jesus goes into the place and meets him in that place that other people avoid. And the man runs to him and falls on his knees and shouts to him, confessing, "Jesus, you are the Son of the Most High God." That title, used by Gentiles to describe Yahweh, the God of the Jews, highlights that even the powers of darkness recognize Jesus' authority, right? And it might be a good reminder at this point in this story, not only to Mark's audience, but also to us, that Jesus is God's agent. Everything he does, everywhere he goes, every person with whom he comes in contact, everyone he ministers to, all of these things matter. How he addresses him matters. He doesn't engage in debate. He doesn't argue with this unclean spirit. He simply says, "Come out of this man. You who occupy, gotta go." What an interesting conversation, right? Nobody else can have this conversation. And the spirits, whatever it is that is afflicting this man, beg, plead, don't send us out of this region. What? What does this mean? Don't send us out of this region. Apparently, Jesus understands completely. He understands the request by these demons, and he sends them into this herd of pigs nearby, another unclean thing. These unclean, untamed animals. And the spirits enter the pigs, and the pigs rush into the sea and drown. Chaos goes into chaos. The sea, all throughout Jewish scripture, is a symbol of chaos and evil and this watery abyss that God restrained at creation, that swallowed up Pharaoh's army to give deliverance to the people Israel. Jesus is not just freeing a man. This is all very symbolic. He's restoring creation. He's bringing peace to chaos. He's driving out chaos, and he's calming the waters, just like Yahweh did at creation. And as soon as he does this, the screaming stops, the fear stops, the chaos stops, and everything is calm. The man just sits there, now fully clothed. How'd that happen? He sits there, fully clothed and in his right mind. And you can look back above in the story, and at this point, now that Jesus has sent these spirits out into the pigs and into the sea, every detail from above is now completely reversed. So that the man is in the complete opposite, absolute opposite position of where he was when Jesus first encountered him. He's restored. He's rehumanized. He's whole again. Interesting. At the point of that restoration, it is now the townspeople that are in chaos. They're the ones that are disturbed. And I don't blame them. They're afraid at all this that they've just witnessed, right? But real healing disrupts the system. Reversals of fortune make us uneasy. Restoration has consequences. Think about it. The people who owned the pigs no longer have any revenue. Their economy is gone, eliminated. But more than that, this community's categories, their definitions of things, safe versus unsafe, sane versus mad, crazy, shattered, gone, reversed, flipped. Their power to label someone beyond saving is gone. It's been revoked. They can no longer define another person as irredeemable. So they do what many of us would do when Jesus upends our expectations. They ask him to leave. The chaplain at the institution where Maria was said that Maria never wanted to be prayed for. She wouldn't hold hands with anybody. She reluctantly would get into a prayer circle, but she certainly didn't participate. She didn't want to talk. She didn't want people talking about her. But the chaplain said that over weeks and weeks and weeks of sessions and meetings and conversations and group therapy, at some point something kind of cracked. One of the other girls sang a song and Maria cried. A volunteer once gave her a journal and it sat on her shelf and collected dust this thick, but for some reason one night she got it down and started drawing sketches and writing poems and writing down ideas of things. She asked for a Bible. One day she confessed to the chaplain, "I think that God forgot me. And I really didn't care. But now I'm not sure I want him to forget me anymore." The chaplain described that as her liberation day. Back in the Decapolis, this man begs to go with Jesus. He is now restored and he wants to go spend time with Jesus. And who could blame him? Jesus is the only one who has ever not run away from him. But Jesus tells him to go home. Go home to your people. Tell them how much the Lord has done for you. In essence, Jesus sends a Gentile man who was formerly demon-possessed into Gentile cities to testify about a Jewish Messiah. This demon-possessed man is the first commissioned missionary in Mark's gospel. Before Peter, before Paul, before the disciples are sent out, this one is sent, clothed, healed, named, set out to proclaim mercy. And the man does. And it follows him to just this little tag at the end of this. This man goes back to the Decapolis and he gets up in public square and he tells everyone about what had happened to him. And, quote, they were amazed. Maria got out a few months after her counselor and chaplain had worked with her. They said that they did not see her after that, except one time when she came back to visit. And she brought her journal, and it was almost full. She was wearing a cross around her neck. When asked, Maria said, yeah, I tell all the girls, I tell everybody now that if God could find me in there, God can find anybody. That's the Gospel of Mark. Story after story. And this is not a sanitized gospel. This is very different from the Gospel of John. It's flowery language and metaphor and heavy use of allegory and descriptions. This is raw. Mark meets us in the graveyards. Mark confronts empires, earthly and spiritual. In Mark's gospel, Jesus heals people who terrify us. And then it sends us out to witness to what we've seen. And I think it's because no one is too far gone. No one is irredeemable. Not a man with a legion of demons. Not a young girl behind bars. Not the people you pray for. Not even you. Jesus crosses boundaries, steps ashore into dark places, names and drives out what binds us, and heals us and restores us. So the question at the end of this is, who do we know who's still living among the dead? Who's living in the tombs? And what might happen if Jesus walked into that place?